Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Captain's Table. I am your host, Captain B-Nard. Two topics of discussion today. The first is going to be a Q&A where I'm going to answer the burning questions submitted to me by you, the fans, and the viewers. Second part is going to be a preview of the Draft League tournament that I've joined, known as the NGDL3. And here to discuss all of that with me is a buddy of mine from the online server Discord. He is a man known as Fat Jesus. So welcome, Fat Jesus.
Hey, how's it going?
Not bad, not bad. All right, so I'm just going to jump right into it here with the Q&A. A little while ago, I asked everybody who wanted to kind of submit some questions to me. I tried to answer all of them regardless of how trolly they were, and some of them did get kind of trolly, but that's all good. So we're going to start off with an actual serious one here from Admiral Awesome 23, and they ask, "How did you get into competitive battling slash YouTubing?" Well, the answer to that question is kind of actually the same to both parts of the question. I got into competitive battling back in Gen 4, actually. I had not played Pokemon throughout Gen 3. I kind of just got out of it and I didn't really play it at all. But I got back in Gen 4, and that's when I had a friend of mine. His name is Mike. I battled him a lot of times here on the channel throughout ORAS and Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon under different names, of course. And he kind of introduced me to competitive battling because I had no idea what it was at the time. And he kind of explained everything to me, like, EVs and IVs and natures and all that stuff, how to breed and do everything legit. And it really just kind of like fascinated me, how involved and intricate the game had been because I remember playing back in like Gen 1 and there was just nothing like that back then, you know what I mean? So, um, yeah, so that's kind of how I got into that, and similarly actually with YouTubing in Gen 6 it was actually the same guy, Mike, actually encouraged me to start putting my battles on YouTube because we battled a lot back then, and he really thought that I had a good eye for competitive play. Thought that I put together some original and fun teams, and thought that I had some good battles. So that's kind of how I got into all of that. But what about you, Jesus? How did you start competitive battling?
Well, same thing with me. I've been playing since Gen 1. I just kind of played for fun, and then kind of Gen 4 came around. I met a couple of people on that whole chat thing. When was how long ago? Back when Platinum was out.
Right, right.
And so I kind of played that a little bit. Had some weird stuff as far as competitive, quote unquote. I really didn't really know about all the whole competitive scene, and then I did a little bit of I battled a little bit in Gen 5, but I just never really got into it, so I stopped playing for a while, and then Gen
Yeah,
6 came around, but I didn't really know. What's Gen 6 is
X and Y.
X and Y.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of I didn't really battle in Gen 5 either. I didn't really play much of Gen 5 because I just didn't really like it too much. Um, Actually, it's funny because I pretty much the whole time Gen 5 was a thing, I was just playing like Heart Gold and Soul Silver the whole time, pretty much,
Mm-hmm.
because I just
Yeah.
didn't like Gen 5. But yeah, and then Gen 6 and 7, I kind of was when I really, got back into being current, and Gen 6 especially with, starting YouTubing. I don't know, you do a little bit of YouTubing too, right?
I've tried. I didn't really do it much. I just kind of did just to mess around, but I
Gotcha.
thought about maybe actually trying to get into it, see how that goes as a little side job, quest thing, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Because I really got into it yet.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of when I started YouTubing, I just pretty much did it for fun. Like, I mean, I'm sure all of us have the dream, like, oh yeah, it would be really cool if I could just like quit my job and YouTube for a living. But um,
Wouldn't that
realistically,
be the dream?
Yeah, realistically, I don't think that's going to happen for me anyway. But it's just something that I really have a lot of fun with. So yeah.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I think that answers that pretty well. The next question is from somebody we both know. That is from Fulham are the best off of our Discord server there, and he asks a pretty simple question. He asks me, "What is my real name?" So I'm not going to give my full real name because that is obviously a hazard. But I will say that my real first name is Bernard, if you couldn't tell by the nickname Captain B-Nard. So yeah, that's a pretty simple answer to that question. Um,
So that is your actual real name.
that is my actual real name, yes, Bernard.
Hmm. I didn't really want to think that. I don't know.
Oh,
I suppose
really?
not me. I don't know. I kind of thought it was, but really didn't want to assume.
Yeah, no, definitely. I got you there. So, um, our next question is from another guy who we both know very well from Discord. That is from Joey Fontaine, the infamous Joey Fontaine. Um,
Oh, great.
and he is going to ask, how old am I? And to answer your question, I am 29 years old currently. Um, I am pretty much a regular guy in most aspects, I would say. I like to play video games. I have a full time job. I have a wife, so, I just do gaming, YouTubing for fun, kind of. So I consider myself just kind of a pretty regular guy. All right. So um, the next question we have is from Amanda, and she asks, "What is the first game I ever played, and what other games do I play besides Pokemon?" So, actually, and this is going to be, none of you listening to this are probably going to know what the hell I'm talking about, but the first game console I ever owned was actually an Atari, believe it or not.
Really?
Yes, and I'm not old, so old that I was playing the Atari when it was new, but I got the Atari in the early to mid '90s, I want to say, when this was a little before PS1 came out, and
Mhm.
that's when I got my hands on an Atari. And there were three games that I remember playing on that, and they were Food Fight, which was kind of like a pretty much self-explanatory. You pick up food and you throw it at things. Um, and then I also played Pole Position 2, which was a racing game, and Joust, which was some kind of like fighting slash shooting game. So yeah, those were the first games that I ever played. Like I said, I don't expect anyone to know what the hell I'm talking about there, but and I don't even know why I remember that, to be honest with you. But I guess being a gamer type guy, stuff like that is kind of seared into your mind, in the back of your mind. But
Mhm.
as far as that goes, other games I play, I've pretty much been a PlayStation guy my entire life. Despite my Pokemon love, obviously, and Nintendo, but I've owned all the PlayStation consoles 1 through 4, so I've played pretty much all of the big name games that you could think of on there. In PlayStation 1 era, I absolutely loved Crash Bandicoot. That was my game. That was my favorite. Then in PlayStation 2, I loved a lot of different games. Ratchet and Clank, Jack and Daxter, Resident Evil was huge. Resident Evil 4 specifically, quite possibly the greatest game ever created, in my opinion. Um, and then PS3, I was really big on Resistance, Dragon Ball Z, a bunch of other stuff like that. Ratchet and Clank again, also. And then nowadays, really with the PS4, I don't really play too much anymore on that, because of work and life and stuff like that. But the games that I'm really into right now are obviously Pokemon, of course, and then Fortnite. Actually, I am pretty big into that too. So, but what about you there, Jesus? What other games do you enjoy besides Pokemon?
My big game I used to love to always play back when I had a PS3 was Okay, well, first, PS2 was my first, no, a Game Boy Advance SP, for what I remember, was my first console that I had.
Nice.
And I didn't really play too much, but then I got a PS2, got really big into Kingdom Hearts.
Kingdom Hearts, yeah, that was a
Like,
good one.
yeah, well, I actually played the second one before I played the first one, actually.
I think a lot of
And
people did.
then I got a then I got a PS3. Uh, Played 1.5 and 2.5 of Kingdom Hearts. Got my PS3 stolen actually
Oh, that sucks.
back. Oh God, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, give or take. And
Jeez.
then I just got really big into start playing Pokemon again, competitive and whatnot. And now for Sapphire. And then brother got an Xbox 360, and I got really big into Skyrim. So I mainly play Skyrim at this point.
Gotcha,
Don't really
gotcha.
play anything else much.
Gotcha. Oh, that's cool. To each his own, you know. That's cool.
Yeah.
Um, all right, so we have our next question here is from another guy that we know pretty well from Discord. That is from Teedit, and he asks, "How did I
God.
meet Joey Fontaine?" So now we're dipping into the trolley questions a little bit now, but that's all good. Um, so yeah, it's kind of a funny story, but maybe kind of not. I don't know. Essentially, what happened was, you know how on YouTube, how you always get all those recommended videos and whatnot on your YouTube page.
Mhm.
So when I was playing, I believe it was right in the beginning of Gen 7, I want to say, with Sun and Moon, when Sun and Moon was new. My YouTube page was basically spammed with suggested videos from Joey Fontaine because he had so many videos on YouTube. And like I felt like every other suggested video I had was Joey Fontaine video. So I was like, okay,
Mhm.
I guess I'll check him out, you know, whatever. Um, so I watched some of his videos, and I thought to myself, "Hey, I could beat this guy." so, so
Mhm.
I wanted to challenge him to a battle just to see if I could, and I did. And the first time we ever actually played, I beat him, and he was really salty about it. But I think that's only because he didn't know I was a YouTuber. Because he does have many more followers than I do. He did then, and he still does now. so. Yeah, and then I kind of contacted him after that on YouTube, and I was like, hey, you know, I'm a YouTuber. Can you post our battle? You know, I'm just trying to get out there to get some exposure and that kind of thing. And he was nice about it. He did end up posting it, and you know, just kind of started talking to him after that, and you know, that was pretty much it. So yeah. How about you? Do you want to share your Joey Fontaine story with the world, or no?
I got a lot to say about him.
Oh, I just mean
I
like
don't really
your
got a whole lot.
first encounter, I should say.
I don't know. I just one day he showed up in the server, and I didn't really talk to him much, but he has a big ego for who he really is. I really have to
Yeah,
say
I
about
mean,
him. He's more big than he really seems that he is.
I cannot disagree with that.
Um,
I think he's a good enough kid, all in all. To be honest with you, I don't have really a problem with him. But you know, I can't.
uh,
At the same time, I can't disagree with what you're saying. So, yeah. So there you go. Next question is going to be from Toronto Pure, and he asks, if I was given the chance to get a free husky puppy, but I had to drive out of state to get it, would I take it? And I did ask him for clarification on the specifics on this, you know, define out of state, and his response to that was that would have to drive to Florida for it. And I live about an 18 to 20 hour drive away from Florida, so that is quite a distance. To answer that question, I would have to say no, I would not do that for the puppy. Now, if it was a Rottweiler puppy, maybe I would give a different answer. because I do love Rottweilers actually. But for a Husky puppy, probably not. I don't think I would. So there you go. And we actually only have one more question here, and this one's from Daniel. And he asks, what do I think about Toronto Pure not actually being from Toronto? So, I guess I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that actually. To be honest with you, I guess it doesn't really matter, but um, I guess I would assume that someone who nicknamed themselves that would actually be from there. But uh, whatever. I guess I don't know. Do you care to weigh in on that one?
Well, this is kind of the first time I'm hearing that he's not actually from Toronto.
Oh yeah,
I mean, I've always thought he was from there, but someone told me, forgot his name. I can't think of his name right now.
yeah.
But yeah, I got told his real name, how tall he is, where he actually lives,
Oh
and
really?
how old he is.
Really? That's weird that somebody would have all that information, um, but yeah, yeah. I just was told that recently. I mean, of course, with the internet being the internet, there's you know, people who want to put everything out there on the table, on the captain's table. Uh, Pun.
Really?
And then there's other people who want to keep everything to themselves, and everybody in between. And I guess to each his own. That's all I would say.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
Um, so yeah.
But it's just I just don't know how to really respond to it. But I feel kind of just baffled, I guess, because I don't know. It's like, I mean, you can say my name's Fat Jesus, but I'm not technically a god, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Just a nickname that I got one day in fucking beginning of my freshman year. That's all
Oh
I gotta
really?
say. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, I guess to each his own, right? So. That does wrap up the questions, but I would like to thank everybody for submitting questions to me, for taking an interest in me, and wanting to know more about me. And then you got the added bonus of hearing from Fat Jesus as well, and hearing a little more about him too. So um, yeah, so that does it for the questions portion of this. Now we're going to move into the draft overview. So um, for those of you who follow my channel, you have probably noticed that I haven't been posting a lot of videos lately. That's for a couple of different reasons. First reason is because I have had a pretty busy personal life as of late. The second reason is I have been in preparation to join the NGDL3, which is a draft league run by the killer Nacho, who is a very tenured PokeTuber, who I have faced a couple of times here on the channel. Um, for those of you unfamiliar with what a draft league is, essentially it's just a big tournament. You play a number of rounds, Swiss style, essentially. So you just play a bunch of different people. You first, though, have to draft your team. The way a lot of people do it is you have every Pokemon is separated into tiers, and you get to draft a certain amount of Pokemon from each tier. The way the Killer Nacho runs his is a little bit different. Basically, every Pokemon is given a price tag, and then you can buy whatever Pokemon you want as long as you stay within your designated spending limit. So, you basically just get to buy your team. It's kind of he's a big football fan. He loves the NFL, so he kind of fashions his draft league after the NFL as much as he can, I guess. So yeah, that's kind of the parameters of the situation. So essentially, this is what I'm going to be doing on the channel for the next several weeks is this draft league tournament. I'm going to go ahead and pull up my draft. The Pokemon. Oh, that's another thing I forgot to mention is that you do have to draft exactly 10 Pokemon. onto your team. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my draft so we can kind of go over it. And it's actually fortuitous that you are with us today, Jesus, because you actually have a bit of history with this draft league, actually being the inaugural winner of the first ever Killer Nachos draft league. Isn't that right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, that was a good thing to win. I mean, it was fun too. I mean,
Absolutely. Yeah,
yeah, I
that's
don't.
kind of what I'm hoping for here as well. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pull up my draft for the NGDL3 so we can talk about that. So, let's just make some adjustments here. And there we go. Okay, so I don't know if you're looking at my draft or not on your side. If not, I'll call them out. Um,
Actually, yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
you're looking at it right now. Okay, so first things first, my team here is the Philadelphia Pidgeys. I thought it was a pretty cool name, cool logo designed by Ominous Acid, another guy from the Discord server there. Um, I wanted to make this my team for a couple different reasons. One, because I am from the Northeast over here in America, so that's kind of a geographically close location to me. The next thing is I chose Pidgey kind of because I just really like Pidgey. I think it's a cool Pokemon, even though it's kind of useless as far as competitive battling goes, obviously. But I just thought it would be a cool mascot to have, or miscot, depending on your pronunciation. Um, but but yeah, so that's the logo. That is the team there. Essentially, the way the draft or the way the team was drafted was the first row from left to right were picks 1 through 5, and then the second row left to right were picks 6 through 10. So looking at my draft just in a general sense, there are a couple of things that I want to mention before we start analyzing it. The first being that I tried to draft and was successful actually in drafting all Pokemon that I have used before. And I kind of did that on purpose for a couple of different reasons. First and foremost was probably laziness on my side, and that's that I already have all these Pokemon, made. They're all bred, EV trained, the whole 9 yards. Um,
Hmm.
so that cuts down on the work that I have to do in order to, play. The second thing is because I've used all these Pokemon before, I am very familiar with them in terms of their sets and their strengths and weaknesses and how to use them most effectively and all that good stuff. So yeah, that's kind of why I did what I did as far as my draft goes. I will say, in a generalistic sense, I am pretty happy with this draft. Um, I feel like it kind of fell apart a little bit at the end because the pickings were getting kind of slim and there were not a whole lot of options left. There were, a handful of Pokemon that I did want to get that I was not able to get because they were just picked before I got to them, but that's just kind of the way Draft League goes. Um, so yeah, so then we can, I guess, get into talking about the team. So you see there, the first Pokemon I chose to draft was Alakazam slash Mega Alakazam. Um, I did pay a $35 price tag for that. That's one thing to note is that the price that I paid for each Pokemon is listed directly below that Pokemon, and we had a $130 spending cap, I believe it was, for this draft. So I believe I ended up with like $4 left over after the fact, which is useful because we are able to transact one Pokemon per week if we so choose, which essentially means you can take your Pokemon and trade it in and get something else instead. So. But back to the squad. Alakazam, I started off with that really because I just like it a lot. It is a really strong special sweeper, in my opinion. You know, kind of a glass cannon, but still, I really do like it. And I'm kind of a more of a lower tier player too. That's the other thing. If you will see that most of these picks, actually all these picks, Alakazam is the only OU pick on the entire squad. Everything else is UU and under. Um, and that's just kind of because that's kind of my play style, you know. Um, so yeah, went with the Alakazam first. Spent the most on that. So what are your thoughts on that there?
On your whole entire team, or just your Alakazam?
Well, you could start with the Alakazam, and then you can kind of just go through because I already know kind of how I feel about the team. But yeah, if you want to, I guess just start with the Alakazam. Go from there.
I just feel like uh, before I go to the mega, just to the Mega Alakazam, just looking at your team in general, it kind of seems like it kind of fits together in its own way because you got a couple walls. You can go with a couple like as well as a couple like attackers and whatnot too.
Yeah,
But as far as your Mega Alakazam, I actually kind of feel like you actually did choose something decent because you can also go a couple of set twos if you don't use the Mega Alakazam,
yeah.
Life Orb or like Focus Sash or something.
Yeah, and that's one of the big reasons I picked it first is versatility because, in my opinion, and I know a lot of people might disagree with this, but in my opinion, I think non-Mega Alakazam is just as good as Mega Alakazam, honestly, because there's a lot of different strategies you can employ. You can use a Focus Sash Magic Guard. You can use Life Orb. You can use it, a bunch of different ways, not just the Mega. So. I really like that versatility. I also like speaking in my team from a generalistic sense. I do. One of the things that I really love about Pokemon is creating my own synergy within my own team, and I'm glad that you brought that up actually, because that's kind of what I really love to do in Pokemon. Is I like to make my own team and make them fit together, if you know what I mean. So
Mhm.
that's what I feel I kind of did. I feel like I have a really, looking at the first half of my team, I feel like I picked up a really strong defensive combination in Gudra and Mega Aggron slash Aggron. Um, Gudra is one of the most specially defensive Pokemon in the game. Um, so that's one of the main reasons I wanted to grab that. Mega Aggron is one of the most physically defensive Pokemon in the game, which is why I wanted to grab that. And with one being Steel, one being Dragon, I feel like they mesh together really well. Um,
Mhm. They do
so
actually.
and I am no stranger to using them actually because if you look at the top middle of my draft, the Gudra, the Mega Aggron, and the Talonflame after that, those were actually Pokemon that I used on my very first team when I started YouTubing back in ORAS a few years ago. Those were all on my original squad, so I'd be lying if I said that that wasn't part of the reason that I didn't pick them. So, very familiar with those guys, and I really do enjoy them all. Talonflame, uh, obviously hasn't seen nearly as much play in Gen 7 as it has when or since its ability got nerfed to hell in Gen 7, I should say. Um,
Mhm.
but still a really strong physical Pokemon, potentially physical sweeper, or, could run a bulky set too. Um, then
I actually ran a bulky Talonflame with Bulk Up, Will-O-Wisp, Roost, and
Brave Bird
Bravelift
and Brave Bird.
or,
I think it
or
was
Brave Bird.
I think it was
Yeah.
Brave Bird, and the reason I know that is because you used that set against me, actually. um, yeah, you definitely we definitely battled, and you definitely used that on me. So I do. It took me like, oh god, it took me like 20 turns to kill that thing, if I'm not mistaken. So I do remember that
It
very
was,
well.
it was quite a bit. Yeah, I mean, I remember stalling you a little bit. That I forgot how you got me, but I think it went downhill from after I actually lost that Talonflame.
I think I had you. I think I had you walled with a heat ran in that game, if I'm not mistaken. This was oh boy, this was a little while ago, but I do remember this game. I think because I ran Magma Storm on that heat ran, and I was able to whittle it down with that, I believe. But
It might
but
have been that then.
yeah, I think that's what it was. But that was a good game nonetheless. You should go check that out on my YouTube channel, Captain B-Nard, Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon Wi-Fi battle number I can't remember.
I
Might have,
don't know. We battled a couple of times, so.
we have, yes, good matches indeed. Um, yeah, so just okay. I'm done shamelessly promoting myself within my own video. So yeah, so then moving along in the draft. I grabbed the Seismitoad, basically just because I felt like it fit together with everything else really well. And then the Hitmonlee, that's just a personal favorite of mine, honestly. I just really like Hitmonlee a lot, and I like its potential in battle. It is a pretty low tier Pokemon, but um, I think it has a lot of potential, and I really like it a lot. Um, kind of then with the next pick, the Raikou, I really again just another Pokemon that I really like. I guess I could say that about all these Pokemon. Really, is I tend to play with what I like and then just kind of work from there. I've never been one to pick a Pokemon just because it's OP. Um, so yeah, but Raikou, I'm a big fan of that. It has a lot of again a lot of options to use it and pretty strong overall pick. Um, from that point, I would say that that was when things, like I said, toward the end of my draft, I feel like because of the limited availability of what was left, I think things went a little bit downhill for me. Because again, these are all Pokemon I like. With the Articuno, the Snorlax, and the Vileplume. Um, I didn't particularly want any of them, to be blunt about it. It was just kind of like a circumstantial decisions that were made, if you know what I mean. Which is, as I'm sure you
Yeah.
know, something that you kind of have to do in a draft league a lot of times. So, um, but yeah, I am overall I'm pretty happy with this squad. I think that it definitely has a lot of potential, and I'm looking forward to playing in the draft league to kind of see what they can do. So, um, so you, I think you mentioned it before, but overall, I feel like I am pretty well balanced overall, and I think
Mhm.
that I
You
definitely,
are right.
yeah,
The team looks well balanced. I feel like you can make a couple pretty decently well teamed just by just what you have here. And I feel like you can make either sort of a defensive core with some good attackers in it.
yeah, definitely. I do definitely plan on more than likely making a few changes throughout the season. Um, but for now, I am happy to start with these guys and see where it goes. Which kind of brings me to the next thing I want to mention, which is the owner of this league, the Killer Nacho, as I mentioned before, recently did a power rankings video where he ranked how good he thinks every team is in their respective divisions. Because that's another thing I guess I hadn't mentioned before is that there are 16 teams total in this league, and they are divided into four groups of four. So. In my group of four, or my division as they call it, my team was actually ranked the lowest by the Killer Nacho. I won't really go into the other teams or the other players in my division, but I was put at the bottom, and I will say that that is a little bit disappointing, to be honest with you. But at the
The
same,
lowest of the low.
yeah, thanks. Um, but to be honest with you, I don't hold it against him because if you were to look at the other players and the other teams in my division, I definitely can understand why he would put me at the bottom. But that's okay. All that's going to do is put a very large chip squarely on the shoulder of the Philadelphia Pidgeys to go ahead and try and prove the critics and the doubters wrong. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't have it any other way because that's just kind of the player I am. That's kind of the battler I am. I like fighting from the bottom up. I like being the underdog in the fight. If that makes sense, I don't know, but that's kind of the position that I enjoy. So
Mm-hmm.
um, I don't know if you can relate to that or not either. But
Or being the underdog. Being the
yeah,
underdog.
yeah,
I yes and no. I mean, I don't know how other people view me as a battler, so I can't really tell if I feel like an underdog or anything.
Right.
But I don't know.
I gotcha. Yeah, for me, it's more of the sense of like, if I go into a match and I see, what my opponent's running and what I'm running, like if they're running higher tier Pokemon and I'm running lower tier Pokemon, and I know I'm going to have my work cut out for me, kind of, I feel like that situation really challenges you to be the best battler you can possibly be. So that's kind of what I enjoy about it. And then I know in his video, the Killer Nacho did say that he did not factor in how good he thought the players were or weren't, although I feel like he kind of did anyway, based on his rankings. But that's okay. It's his video. He can do what he wants, obviously. But yeah, I am in a division with some very strong teams, led by some very strong battlers as well. So I am excited. This is actually my first draft league that I've ever entered. So I am excited.
Is it really?
Yes, it is actually. So, oh, you didn't know that before?
I did not know.
Gotcha. Um, yeah, so I'm excited to see how it goes. I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be a lot of fun, and I will be posting for those of you who are looking forward to seeing how I do in this the NGDL3. I will be posting on a weekly basis every match that I have. It is a 12-round tournament to start, so I will be posting all 12 of those battles that I have, regardless of how good or bad those battles turn out to be, which is a little bit different from how I typically do things, because usually I put kind of a quality control on what battles I post or don't post. But that won't be the case for the draft league here. I will be showing you guys all of my games, no matter how good, bad, or ugly they are. So stay tuned for that, I guess. And I think that about wraps things up, actually. So I don't know if you have anything else you want to say, Fat Jesus.
Not really. Other than good luck on your matches in the tournament, man. That's all I gotta say.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate that. And thank you for joining me here today to go ahead and talk about these things. I appreciate it. And so I guess that's about it. So thank you to everyone for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. And please hit that like button, leave a comment, and or subscribe if you did enjoy, and stay tuned for more new videos in the future, more episodes of the Captain's Table to come with more new discussion topics, new guests, and of course the NGDL Draft League tournament battles to come as well. So that's it, and we'll see you next time.